Tonight, we want to dig into a question. Is your partner ready for marriage? I apologize for the late start. Again, technical hitches as we get through and navigate this terrain. Is your partner ready for marriage? And if you can answer that question, the other question I'd like to ask is, do you know the key traits to look out for? And I'm sure you'll be wondering, why do we need to find out if our partner is ready for marriage? Well, people, marriage is a lifelong adventure, one that you don't want to venture into hazarding a guess. While you may not be able to tell or give all the answers along the path, you will feel satisfied that you did your due diligence and that you went through a due process to be able to safeguard or at least tell who it is that you're going to go through life with. And so, like I said, it's a lifelong journey. Do you know if the person you are in a relationship with is truly ready for that lifelong journey? And the one way I choose to describe the marriage journey is a maze. You know, sometimes when we're little children, we had these puzzles that we would be asked to find the fish at the end of the maze. And a maze is a path that has dead ends, twists, turns, and except you know exactly where to go and how you need to navigate the path, you will never be able to discover the gift or the treasure that had been hidden at the end of the maze. And so that's why it's critical that we ask ourselves this critical question. If the person you are choosing to do life with is really ready for that journey and has what it takes to embark on that journey. Marriage is a sacred bond. It's one that demands of you commitment, shared dreams, and you must go into it intentionally. It's not a child's game. It's not something to play around with. It can either make or mar you. Why don't you go into it confident enough that you have been able to do the things that you needed to do? Ask the questions that you needed to ask. Seek out the traits that you need to know about before you say yes. You know, I will always say, many people spend a lot of time planning for a wedding, but they truly do not spend the time thinking about the marriage. Marriage is a lifelong journey. Go into it diligently and intentionally. Let's roll. So, what is this marriage that we're talking about? It is a relationship where two people have a special commitment to one another to do life together. They're committing to share their resources. They're committing to go through the good times and the bad times together, to laugh together and cry together if need be. And hey, to share their joys and share the responsibilities. And the question is, who are you doing that journey with? Who have you chosen to take that work with you? Many a time, people just think, I am of age. I'm old enough. Is the next thing on the agenda? No, it's not a checkbox list. It is something that defines you completely. Many people have gone into marriage and have completely lost themselves, lost everything about them, and are groping in the dark because the questions they should have asked, the things they should have looked into deeply, they thought that love was enough. And so one of the things I want to spend time tonight doing before we find the traits is to tell you what the misconceptions about marriage is. Many people think that marriage is all about love, that all love is all that you need to be able to go on the marriage journey. May I bust your bubble? Love is not enough. It is truly not enough. While I will not want to do life with somebody who doesn't give me that tingling feeling, having been in marriage, I know too well to tell you that love is not enough. Marriage, some people think that marriage will change your partner. Oh boy, marriage will not change your partner. Marriage will only amplify who your partner is to you. So don't go into it with that myth, with that misconception that when we get married, he will change. Are you the Holy Spirit? Or which kind of otomokbo are you going to use to change the person? Marriage will only bring out what is already innate in that person. So you better be sure who you are doing that with. Many people think that, oh, since he loves me and she loves me, we will definitely agree on everything. I laugh in 3D because you will never agree on everything. Not because that is wrong in itself, but the reality is that no two people are the same. Not even children birthed by the same father and mother are the same. Marriage will not make you agree on everything because your spouse is coming from somewhere and you are coming from somewhere, and both of you have had different life experiences, have been nurtured differently, have gone through things that have either made or marred you and left imprints upon your heart, and then you begin to view life through all these prisms. So marriage will not guarantee that you and your spouse will see everything or agree on everything. The next one is that financial stability is the most important factor. How many people have gotten into marriage because maybe the man was very wealthy, or the girl came from a very wealthy background and you thought you were securing your future? And somewhere in the course of marriage, things turn around, business takes a downturn, and you are barely able to pick your bills. You're barely able to live life the way you desire to live them. Are you going to pack your bags and leave? Or are you going to walk away? Or would you be able to weather the storms? Because you know what? Change is one constant thing that is going to happen. And the ability to embrace change is what will determine how far you go in marriage. So, hey, financial stability does not grant you anything, does not give you any comfort for if you wish, does not guarantee that your marriage will do well. If it did, why are the Bill Gates and the people who have so much money parting ways after 25, 20 years? While we're not trying to vilify them or make a caricature of what has happened in their lives, it just comes to say to you that financial stability will not guarantee that your marriage will work right. So that's a myth that you need to question. The other one is that some people think if I get married, my partner will fulfill and meet all my needs. When did your partner become the source and sustainer of life? When did your partner become El Shaddai? Because the day any man chooses to be El Shaddai to his fellow man, he shall surely die. Because no one man, no one, when I say man, I use it in the generic term, but permit me to say no one man, no one woman has the capacity to fulfill all your needs. So do not go into marriage with that misconception. And finally, marriage will solve all your problems. If you have problems, sit down, address them, become a wholesome person, because marriage will amplify your errors. It will amplify your feelings. It would amplify the things that you need to work on that you were in denial of. And so while there is no perfect person, the beauty of it is that one goes into marriage with his authentic self. How many of you actually know who you are? So before we begin to think about the threats, the first thing for me is how self-aware are you? And when I say that, people wonder, If you are not self-aware, you are going to walk into murky waters. You're going to mess up yourself completely. I'll use myself as an example. Like I said, I had a retinue of suitors. And there were those who would actually lick the ground on which I walked. But men, they were going to do to yourself. Do you know yourself? Self-awareness brings you to the point where you know yourself. You know yourself well enough to choose for yourself how you give yourself in every relationship. And so I recall that as suitors kept coming, one day my mom had a sit down with me and she said, Oluchi, what's wrong with this person? I said, Mommy, this one, he doesn't have money, but the kind of people he drags around himself, when he now has the money, the house will be unconducive. I will be choked. I won't be able to live with the kind of friends that he has. She said, what of this other one? I said, that one, very tall, very handsome, very well kept. But men, the bullets that he pushes out when he speaks the English, hey, I will be so embarrassed and I'll be living in embarrassment all my life. I can't deal. What of this other one? I say, Mom, I have no regard for any man who looks down on his fellow man because it will affect the way things are done. She said, what of this one? I say, he doesn't have money. But when he comes in with anything, I can ask him where he's coming from. I can ask him where the money is. I can ask him how he got it because he's my friend. And my mommy turned and looked and said, oh, Luchi. I say, yes, Mommy. He doesn't have money, but he has a will to be able to walk and get something doing and get his bills paid. He doesn't make any impressions on anybody. You know, there are some guys who will come out, and for these are for the ladies who may be listening to me. Some guys will come out and they want to spend all the money, but they're living a lie. This one, if he didn't have, he say he doesn't have. In fact, he will say, do you have? If you don't have, that is when my search will begin. I wanted that person who was true about where he was per time. So I say to you again, self-awareness is one thing that will help you make the right kind of decision. And so if you live with nothing today, remember that you need to know yourself enough to choose for yourself how you give yourself in every situation and to any relationship at all. Now, why are we talking about the indices or the things that indicate the readiness for marriage? There is no one cap fits all, to be honest. There is no specific formula to determine the readiness for marriage because it varies from person to person. Why somebody may be 23 years old and ready for marriage, another one is 40 and is still a mommy's boy. So age wouldn't be a determinant. However, the individual becomes the determinant. And then you want to ask yourself, what are the key traits we need to look out for as we venture into any relationship before we make a lifelong commitment? And so one of the things will be that we look at it using the acronym marriages. And I'm sure you say, oh, Oluchi again, acronym. Yes. I like to use the acronyms because it helps you keep them in perspective. And so we're going to look at marriages. Maturity. How mature is the person in question? Is that person taking decisions only as he's dictated to by his dad, his mom, her auntie, her uncle, her friend? Or does the person have a perspective as to who he or she is per time? Take a deep breath and ask yourself, the person I'm doing life with, how mature is the person? Is the person petty and picks issues and quarrels over little things? Makes much ado about nothing? Can the person sit down and look at a situation and communicate what he's agreeable with or what she's agreeable with or what is not agreeable with her in a mature and coherent way without blowing the tops? How mature is the person you're getting into a relationship with? The second thing, how authentic? Many people are fake. Many people are living lives that are not theirs. Many people want to live up to the Joneses. How long will you live life a counterfeit of who you are? Is that person real? And being real is being true about everything about you, accepting everything about you, your weaknesses, your strengths, your gifts, your flaws, just embracing you, the totality of you. How real is that person? You know, when I was in the university, they used to call me the British lady. And one of the things that brought my husband to me was that they used to say, "Matakira hu, anaha tanti yata." Do you know what that means? They know they chop her ear. She know they hear. What she wants is what she wants. What she will not tolerate, she's not waiting till tomorrow to tell you she's not tolerating it. And my husband said he just used to wonder, this little girl that they're always talking about, what is it about her that even the Jim brothers were scared to approach? And it was that scared to approach, bro ventured, and I became his friend. Incidentally, because I was real, he too, he was a very real person. So he now understood they were living life from another planet. And he was just being himself. The day he has, the day he doesn't have, the day he wants to crack joke, what he doesn't understand, and he would just say it. And so true friendship was cultivated at that point. The other thing you want to find out, does that person respect you enough? Some people have lost their identity in marriage. While some men may have experienced this, a lot more, or maybe because the men, we hear the stories of the women more, many women have lost themselves in the name of marriage. There is absolutely no respect. The partner does not think she has a right to anything at all, even whether she doesn't even think she has a right to dream and do anything for herself. He just comes and he lords it over her. She can barely express an opinion. Does the person you want to do life with respect you enough to know that you have a perspective, you have an opinion, you have dreams and aspirations? If you don't see it, don't go. The next one for me will be reliability and resourcefulness. How reliable, how loyal, how committed is that partner to you? And you can test commitments. Some of us have friends that we didn't get married to, that have dated back over 20 years. And you can be sure that once you pick the phone and call, that they will be there for you, that they will stick up for you no matter what. How much more somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with? Is that person reliable? Can you depend on that person's words? Can you depend on the person to show up when he or she is needed? Are they resourceful enough to make something out of nothing? Are they resourceful enough to read the temperature in the room and know how to adjust? Because resourcefulness will also help you to meet your bills. Marriage comes with a lot of responsibility. Is that partner resourceful? Or is a man here going to commit to a woman that if everything comes crumbling down, the woman cannot even fry akara and put it out on the streets and be sure that they can have a meal for the day? Because she thinks that if she comes to that point, it will be too condescending for her person. How reliable, how resourceful. Does the person have any integrity at all? Does he say one thing here and say another thing there? Does he have integrity? Does she have integrity? The things that he or she says, are they consistent over time? When they are pushed to the wall, will they cave in? Or will they stand for what they believe in? Will they stand the test of time? I often say to many people who get to know me, adaptability is skill. How adaptable is your spouse? If things became tough and you needed to downscale to be able to move forward, will your intended be able to downscale? Will your intended be able to adapt to the situation thrown at you? Is your intended in the being able to adapt? Is that person willing to grow? Is that person teachable enough? Because to be adaptable, you will also need to be able to be teachable. The person may not know it all. The person may not have the experiences you have. The person may not have the exposure that you've got. But can you teach that person without any ego or sense of pride or a fencing off coming from that partner? A teachable spouse is an asset. So if you are doing life with someone who would not even take correction, you want to rethink if you really want to go the long haul. Is that person generous? And I'm sure some of you are wondering, generous? Yes. You know, particularly in the African society, where you are married and the man's family seems to be the focus of the day, I want to ask you as the girl, did you drop from the skies? Didn't you come from a family? Is the person generous enough to even think about you? Is the person generous enough to even look beyond himself or herself and think about you before we even begin to talk about the extended family system? There are people that you begin to tell from the start that they are selfish. I once had a situation where one young lady, the reason why she said no to one of the suitors that came her way was because every time that young man would call, exactly 1 minute on the dot, the line goes off. He doesn't spend more than 1 minute on the call. So the lady say, "Che, this one is aka chichichi. I cannot survive." You know, it's not about being frivolous. It's about the heart condition. You truly, there's a saying that goes, you can give without loving, but you never can love without giving. Is that person generous enough to acknowledge that you are there, to see your needs even when you don't speak about them? Is that person generous enough to know when you are tired and you need a lie down, and the person, even though a man, can choose to go over and wash up the things in the kitchen and make a meal so that you can raise your feet up? Is that person generous enough to commit to the things that you desire to pursue and support you through it? If you don't see that, there is an alarm bell there, because marriage will demand of you. And doing life with a selfish person will be the most frustrating venture you ever engaged in. Let's go to E, empathy. Will that person look at you with grace, cut you some slacks when you make a mistake? Can that person make excuses for you so that they can be accommodating? Will that person be able to forgive you as you go through life journey? Because one of the things that will happen is that you will make mistakes. You will step on each other's toes. Is the person's heart large enough to be able to accommodate your excesses? To be able to teach you along life's journey? I'll give you an example. In doing life with my husband, once we got off on a wrong note and I was unhappy about something, he ceased to become darling. He ceased to be sweetheart or anything loving. He just wasn't lovable at the time. And so if I needed to communicate anything, I will wait until my eyes catch his own, and then I will say what I needed to say. And then sometimes when it looks like the wait is too long, I will say, Austin. And then I will begin to say what I wanted to say. But do you know what changed me? No matter how bad the situation was, no matter how heated the situation was, no matter what it was that I had done that was hurting him, I remained baby. Baby when it was good, baby when it was rough, baby through it all. And as he showed me that kind gesture, as he x-rayed himself and had a large heart to accommodate me, I found myself being able to say darling even when he had hurt me. So is that person filled with empathy? Does that person have a heart large enough to accommodate you? Do you have shared values and goals? That is the S in marriages. If you don't believe the same things, if you don't value the same things, your relationship is already starting on a rocky footing. We had always desired as we got married together that we would do life such that others would want to look at us and emulate us. And so at different points when people would reach out for us to speak about anything, I simply will say to my husband, if we're not going to be authentic and true about our struggles and about our stories, I don't want to do it. I don't want to come out and preach to people about what the Bible says or what the Bible did not say or what one book said that I am not myself practicing. And so if there are places that we have struggled, I'd like to also put that on the spot. And he said, baby, all the way. We do us. We don't do any other person. And that is critical. Are your values the same? Are your goals the same? Or are you running parallel lines? Because when you run parallel lines, sometimes you have all the resources. Sometimes you have everything you can get. But yet you look back and you have achieved nothing. Because you've come in there and it looks like you're in competition with one another. Hey, the person you want to do life with must be somebody who thinks team. Team simply means together, everyone achieves more. And you're asking yourself, in being a team-centered partner, you're not losing your identity. You're not losing your authenticity, but you're pulling yourselves together and achieving more. You're looking at the strengths of each one of you and downplaying the weaknesses as much as possible. You have shared values, shared goals. For instance, in our home, I'm a planner. I don't like to take risks at all. I don't like the unsettling feeling that it brings my way. My husband, super risk taker. And we needed that blend, that combination to be able to go anywhere at all. So when I'm still busy piecing everything together, is it adding up? Is it not adding up? Is it going? Is it not going? Time is going. Prices are increasing. My husband has plunged into the sea. And once he plunges, he knows that once he has plunged, all he does not want it to go bad. I will follow suit. But if he's waiting for me to see it, we will never make that move. And these are the things you want to sit down and discuss and find out. And how did that come about? I came up from a home where there was structure, where there was planning. So if there were things that were running up and down, I didn't know. My husband came from a setting where if they even find food to eat, by the time the pot is down, the pot is still hot. The food in the plates, in the pot is finished. And so that person who had lived and come to the point where he could send himself through school, navigate those rough terrains, wash down 4 buses, empty people's dustbins, clean people's homes, teach people's children, and be gathering his pennies and his kobos and his coins and his nairas until he became something to be able to send himself to school. You can understand why he will be a super risk taker. Me, all I needed to say, Daddy, they say we should pay school fees, and the school fees will be paid. How? Whether he struggled, he didn't struggle, Oluchi Ibosono does not know. And so if you don't understand that, how do you people begin to piece yourselves together and harness your strengths? If you want somebody to get a sharpshooter, talk straight. Tell it to the person, you want this thing over, send Oluchi to that place. If you want a relationship where you will not mess up with the person, send my husband. He will tell you you are stupid. You will agree with him that you are stupid. It's only when you have gotten to your house that you will understand that what he said to you is that you are stupid. Do you understand yourselves and your values enough to be able to know where to step in for each other, step up for yourselves and your relationship so that you can thrive? If you've not been able to find that synergy, pause. Pause. Marriage is a lifelong journey. Step back. Look again. Look out for those things. I had a dear sister say to me that after their honeymoon, they went to the mall. She needed change of clothes, and they roamed the mall, and she was so happy that her husband was going to get her some things. They came out from that mall not picking one thing. And she said, "Yay, have I not entered trouble?" But they could have open and honest communication. And she said, "What kind of a man are you?" The man wept through the night. And at about 3 a.m., woke her up and said, "I'm not a selfish person. I know that you're going to go back to school. I know that you need to look like a lady who has been properly taken care of. You can't live at the level you were when you were a single girl any longer. And so, while I understand that there are good things, I have an eye for good things, but I am also very careful of being very wasteful." How many times have we gotten committed to people we had no business getting committed to because we didn't understand their value system? And she said she wept. And by the time she was getting back to her zone, he had arranged dresses. He knew her size, her shoes, arranged where she would stay and how she would stay in comfort. He had given himself so effortlessly to giving her comfort. She had seen that in the early days. But just one day of walking through a mall and not picking anything, she suddenly forgot who she thought he was. But the ability to sit down and have the conversation was what brought clarity, was what brought perspective. How authentic are you? I will hammer on authenticity, because when you are authentic, every other thing will fall in place. The things you don't know, you will gracefully submit yourself for learning. The things you are clear about, you are not ashamed to say, "This is where I am. I don't have the money now. We can't afford it. Can we move on this way?" And you know, while we continue to work and do stuff, people were around us were flying in and flying out, and my husband would say, "Baby, all the things we earn, part of it is seed for bread. The other is seed for the sower. A farmer who eats all his seed will never have a harvest." And so the question you want to ask yourself is if that person understands that value, if that person sees it enough to be able to communicate it and to stay true to himself even when there is pressure, even when it looks like somebody is pulling you in a direction that you don't want to go. Define your value system and be sure that they are aligned. And finally, I'm sure you will say, why are we looking at these key traits? Well, one of the things it does is that it helps you gain better understanding of the readiness of your partner for marriage. It helps you build a strong foundation and a healthy and fulfilling relationship. Marriage is a partnership that is built on mutual respect, understanding, love, and must be gotten into it intentionally. My last words for you tonight will be, in all your loving, love wisely. Don't forget, in all your loving, ensure that you love wisely. I hope that tonight I've been able to convince you of why you need to dig deep into who you are. Define who you are, where you are going to. Like I said, I didn't want a man who will be intimidated by my confidence. I didn't want a man that I will not be able to say, this is what I think about this, and yet feel heard, even if that's not eventually how we would go. I didn't want to get into a relationship where I will be intimidated, because I have a voice. I have a voice. And so it was important to me to know who I am first before I begin to look for the traits in the person I want to do life with. If you're not a wholesome person, even looking for the traits will not help you. You will get into marriage and you will make a complete mess of it. But if you know where you are on the spectrum, if you're true to yourself about your struggles and the path you're taking to deal with them, about your strengths, about your aspirations and your dreams, about where you are going, then you'll be able to pick the right person who will do that life with you and go through it, go through the ups and downs with you graciously. I'll just quickly look through the comment section and see if there's anybody who has any question or anything that I need to respond to before we call it a day. I'm not sure I'm seeing any questions. So if you are here listening to me and you're not quite sure how to go about what you need to go through, a link will be dropped in the chat column that you can fill in and be on a waiting list and have coaches respond to you appropriately. You have help in this place. Don't be ashamed to reach out. Once you can identify yourself and where you are on the spectrum, it is easy to make the other decisions gracefully. At this time, I do not see any other question. I don't see any question. I'm not seeing anybody say anything or question anything. I'll wait a few more minutes and then we'll have a good night's rest. Yeah, somebody says here, authenticity breeds vulnerability. So true. You will not be ashamed to say, this is where I am. You will not be ashamed to say, this is where I need help. And you will not be ashamed to seek the help that you require. Okay, people. I'm sure I've been able to give value to you tonight. And I trust that your decision-making system will be enhanced by what you've heard tonight. Have a self-talk with yourself. Have the self-talk. Introspect. Question the things that you've done and why you have done the things you've done the way you've done them. And I'm sure you will find the answers. Auntie Nike Michaels, please can you help drop the link that people can sign up with if if they need it. That would be very helpful. So let me see if I can quickly find that link, and then would help you drop it there while Antinika is looking for it as well. Has anybody dropped that? Has anybody dropped the link? I trust that you've gotten value tonight. I trust that you're going to sit down with yourself and engage with yourself, because that's the best kind of engagement that can happen. And you'll be glad you did. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening. This is where we call it everybody a day. Have a lovely evening. This is where we call it everybody a day. Have a lovely evening. This is where we call it everybody a day. Have a lovely evening. This is where we call it everybody a day. Have a lovely evening.
Are you a STEM professional and are looking to apply for a
I'm tired. I don't know what I did wrong.